past life recall, how reliable is it? Well, even under hypnotic regression, I would suggest that it is never 100% reliable as proof of reincarnation or as proof of accurate recall of a past life. And I think anybody claiming to remember past lives perhaps should look at the alternative explanations. I've listed some here. Well, the top, imagination. Well, it is possible just to imagine it all. I think we're all capable of imagining great things, and some people possibly are perhaps need to rein in their imagination a little bit, and perhaps may have vivid imaginations of events that have in their previous lives that have never actually occurred, or events which they claim to have come from previous lives which have never actually occurred, are just purely the product of imagination. So, something to consider. Cryptomnesia, latent memory, apparent memory resurfacing after a number of years as new stuff. I think that the best examples of this are people who possibly have, in the distant past, read a book or seen a film and identified with one of the characters in the book or the film. And I think it's quite easy to identify with a character, certainly in a book or a film. Give us an example, possibly Robert Louis Stevenson's Kidnapped. I think probably most people have read that at school. And it's a very well written book, and it's the adventures of a guy called David Balfour. In fact, I can still remember his name 50 years later. And it's written in the first person. And I think it's very easy to identify with the character in the book. And it may be possible, I mean, I can remember reading the book, so I would never confuse the book with any of my own memories. But I think it is possible to forget that you forget the book and perhaps remember some of the events in the book as happening to yourself, and possibly as but certainly with Kidnapped, it's set in the 1700s. It's possible to imagine that has come from a previous life, and of course a film may have a similar effect. Anyway, so that's the point to consider. Zenit Lasya, the ability to remember, the ability to speak a language which you cannot possibly have learned. In fact, this has been held up as proof of reincarnation. But from what I've read, the evidence for true Zenit Lasya is quite scanty. It may be, yes, that the language from a previous life does come to the surface, and there have been examples of people who've had head injuries and been able to speak another language. So yes, it's there, but it doesn't actually prove reincarnation. But it's a very interesting subject, very interesting study as to how this occurs. In fact, I don't think there really is any proper explanation for it, but reincarnation could be one of them. Subject trying to please the hypnotist. Now, I do know somebody who once went to a past life regression evening, and they were regressed, and they said it was a room full of people, the hypnotist, and it's very, very tempting to want to put on a show. Yes, and I think this can happen, that you don't want to just sit there and not remember anything. No, make it worth doing and put on a show. And I think this sometimes happens, that people feel that they need to make the effort to impress. So that's that possibly has happened in some cases of hypnotic regression, to the extent that you've convinced yourself. Collective memory pool, possibly reading other people's Akashic records, is one explanation, and the others that memories are just out there. Now, the idea that ideas are just out there has been around for some time. It's very often that a scientific breakthrough is made in one part of the world, and somebody working completely independently makes a similar breakthrough, or comes up with a similar idea. And it's certainly documented that Leibniz and Newton's calculus, Leibniz and Newton were working on similar projects, and never met, and really didn't know what the other was doing. So yes, that idea that ideas are just out there, so perhaps memories are just out there. The collective unconscious or group mind. Well, Theosophy postulates that humanity has a group soul, so yes, a group mind, that we're all linked, and there is actually a collective memory, that there's no copyright on your own memories, and the memories possibly retained in what we're saying the Akashic record, but our experiences are retained in the Akashic record. But memory, yes, it may be a resource that to some people is available, a group memory. And of course, finally, yes, I accept the possibility of reincarnation. I believe in reincarnation. I've always believed in it. But I don't always accept that people who claim to recall past lives are actually recalling them, so I can be very sceptical about that. But yes, I think it is possible to remember past lives unaided, and that can be sometimes very beneficial to the person, and it can form part of spiritual development. But reincarnation, yes, but take it, be sceptical at first if people say that they can actually remember past lives, or that they have their memories, past life recall is proof of reincarnation.